Hello guys, and today we are gonna be just kind of goofy. We are gonna be like, I'm sorry, that's like a freaking okay.
Wait.
Honestly, I
Opera GX.
I am so confused, right
Yo, Vienna, what are you up to, dude?
bro.
How's it hanging, brother?
I want Freddy.
Get that one. Okay, let me watch this. Story one.
My name is Jeremy Cole, and for about
We have our friend Cameron or friend slash coworker slash cousin here. So he said what's up, and we're gonna be watching this. This guy look like, bro. I don't know what cartoon this is from, but this literally looks like this. It looks like a cartoon with the way his mouth is like this. It looks like one of those cartoons. I don't know what his name. I don't know what the name is. Scooby Doo on Shaggy. There's another cartoon on there on somewhere, and it just looks like that. He look like Shaggy though. He kind of does look like Shaggy, but younger.
5 years, I worked as an accounting manager for one of the largest business firms in the country. My life for those 5 years was seemingly perfect. But little did I know that what would come after in the next few years would be far from that.
That man's teeth are crusty. Crusty. And this man does not look happy. That's just like me when I go to school in the morning. This man's nose is giant, by the way. This man look like a freaking elf on the shelf because of this man's spiky nose. He look like Pinocchio. Every time he lies, that nose grows. Is that a mouse? Bro. People's signatures are so freaking bad now. Oh my gosh, this animation is so bad right now. First of all, his teeth are gray.
In the year 2018, the firm I worked for
You closed your mouth.
decided to let employees go
That's not why.
in an attempt to cut costs on salaries. Sadly, I was one of the employees let go.
Ooh, I did not hear that.
To cut costs on salaries. Sadly, I was one of the employees let go. My life only went downhill from that point. Attempts at getting a new job.
How do you do that with your mouth? That is next level cartoon editing. Bro, his nose is giant. I can't stop looking at it. A
Seemed
villager.
pointless at the time, but the pandemic that
Minecraft.
came in 2020 made it
Not even typing anything. You're scrolling down. You are scrolling down like this.
an idea of getting a new job impossible. And in just 3 years, my wife had divorced me and taken the kids, leaving me with regular child support payments.
That wasn't even a real laugh. But like that's tough, bro. I'm sorry. And you did not. You edit this one good. You edit this one good. Whoever made this. But this, he looked like he about to cry.
While unemployed, and suddenly, by 2021, I found myself in nearly crippling debt. I owed banks and family members huge sums of money, while at the same time being behind on almost all my bills. It was this situation that led me to make one single life-changing decision. A decision that could have gone horribly wrong. The date was November 13th, 2021. And as I said
Just about
earlier,
to pause that because this looks so cool down there. That looks so cool. And yeah.
I was behind on a lot of payments, and so I decided I needed to find another way to make money and fast. I looked on the web for fast ways to earn large sums of money and was bombarded immediately with numerous sites advertising freelance jobs and how much I could earn from them. I ignored these sites as I had previously attempted freelancing during the quarantine. Now, looking for something a lot more serious, I attempted freelancing during the quarantine.
Guru 99. I'm gonna look that up.
Now, looking for something a lot more serious and promising. After scrolling for some time, I eventually found a site that wasn't necessarily what I was looking for, but intrigued me, as it gave detailed examples and instructions on ancient rituals used to make money and fast. Now, at the time, I wasn't the type to believe in rituals, spirits, or religion. But as the saying goes, desperate times call for desperate measures. So I looked through the site till I found one relatively easy that seemed to be the answer to my problem.
Bro, that
It was called The Man in the Fields. I began.
Man in the Fields. Boys looking, dang, with them long nails. I know that's a hot Cheeto boy or hot Cheeto girl. God, dog, with them long fingers. Can you see these fingers? Bro, like salad fingers. But he had them stubby. I'm gonna say stubby. I'm gonna say short legs. Not short, because he's tall as crap. And height is always in the legs. Bruh. This guy is like salad fingers up in here. And you can see, I know he's skinny.
Began to read what the site had to say on the game. It is advised not to play this game. But to those who seek wealth and protection, engage at your own risk. If you indeed win this game, you will be granted financial and physical protection for an entire year. But if you lose, the consequences could be dire. To begin this game, you must summon the Man in the Fields. To do this, you will need to go into your backyard with a lantern and ask 7 times, but who will scare the crows away? If you hear nothing after the 7th time, then the summoning failed and the game is over. But if you hear a voice say, "That's not your biggest problem," then the game has now begun. At this point, the first thing you'll need to do is to go into your home and find a room with only one door. Put a crucifix in it and close everything in it that can be closed. This will be your safe haven. Once you leave this room, you will find that everything in your home that can be open will be open, and your job is to close all these items before the clock strikes 12. Throughout the ritual, as you close each item that is opened, you will see an eerie man dressed in farmer's overalls with a deathly complexion on his face. Ignore him, as he is not the man, but the herald, and not what you should fear. At no point should you look into your yard. If you do, you will see the elongated Man in the Fields, and he will see you. However, if this should happen, you will need to return to your safe haven immediately and remain there as the Man in the Fields will rush his way into your home in search of you. Close your eyes till the sun comes up, and this will end the game. Otherwise, you will be caught by the Man in the Fields, and pagan deities are unforgiving. But if you complete the task at hand without looking at the man, return to your room, and once the sun comes up, the Man in the Fields will reward you. I spent the next few days thinking over whether or not the game was a good idea. Despite my lack of belief in the supernatural, I wasn't too eager to summon a pagan deity after being warned not to. But then, one afternoon, I received a call from my ex-wife. Hello? I knew I hadn't paid child support for the past 2 months, but was surprised as she usually wasn't the one who called. Jeremy, I'm just calling you to give you a heads up. My lawyers and I filed a complaint against you, and we have a court date in January. You're going to receive the papers soon, but I simply felt I should be the one to tell you myself. Goodbye. She hung up immediately after that, and I slowly felt myself being filled with confusion and disappointment. Soon enough, I felt nothing but anger, and without any further hesitation, I knew what to do. I decided to play the game at my parents' house, as they barely stayed there on weekends and were the only people I knew personally who had a backyard. It started getting dark around 6 p.m., and I began looking for the room I would use as my safe haven. My childhood bedroom turned out to be the best option, as it was basically empty and barely had anything in it that would need to be closed. So I took my mom's crucifix and placed it in the center of the room before heading out to start the game. The time was 11 p.m., and it was now completely dark out. The thought of what I was about to do made the yard look scarier than it ever had, and despite having made up my mind on what I had to do, I could feel a lump form in my throat as I lit the candle and stepped into the yard. With every step I took deeper into the yard, I said the words, but who will scare the crows away? After the 6th time, I stood with my hands shaking slightly as I wondered if I should stop and walk back in. But I simply took a deep breath and said for the 7th time, "But who will scare the crows away?" The silence in the yard was almost deafening. I could feel my heart beating, and after a while, not hearing anything, I blew the candle out and began walking towards the house, partly relieved. It was only then that I heard a voice that sent shivers down my spine say, "That's not your biggest problem." My instinctive reaction was to turn and see who spoke, but luckily,
Showing up on the first page of Google might not be the best for everyone.
I quickly remembered the rules of the game and kept walking to the house. It was impossible to not notice what had obviously changed about the house. All doors, drawers, shelves, and cans were open, and I immediately began to close them. With every door I closed, I made sure to not even mistakenly look outside. The kitchen took the longest as numerous cans, bottles, and pots were opened, but I carefully closed them all, one after the other. It was only as I closed the kettle I noticed the reflection of a man with a hat standing behind me. I began to shake as I put the lid back on the kettle, unsure of whether to turn to look at him. I decided to simply glance as I left the kitchen. The figure stood in the kitchen, was dressed in farmer's clothes, and every part of him was gray and stained with what I assumed was dirt. He had no footsteps as he followed me slowly around the house while I continued the task. I remembered the site said to ignore the being, but that wasn't easy in the slightest as I was completely scared and couldn't tell where the figure was most of the time. But eventually, I was done. I shut the last door and expected the figure following me to disappear, but it didn't. And soon enough, I began panicking as I wondered if I had carried out the wrong task. The being stood still, and I decided to go rouse the house once more to ensure I had closed everything. But something was different this time, as the being was no longer just silently following me and seemed closer every time I looked. My heart began pounding, and I couldn't stop shaking. Suddenly, I noticed an empty open can in the kitchen sitting beside the sink, and I hoped closing it would send the being away. I walked towards the sink, but as I picked up the can, it slipped and fell right out of my hands. At this point, I could feel the figure standing directly behind me, looking over my shoulder. I was fully focused on the being now, so I slowly picked up the can, but as I got back up, I was met by the window that sat over the sink and a clear view of the backyard. My heart stopped, and the figure disappeared as I stared at what I could only describe as a bunch of bones and sticks put together to look like a scarecrow. The scarecrow was about 8 feet tall, with arms reaching the ground, and in place of its usual pumpkin head was an inhuman skull. I stood frozen as I stared out the window. The man in the fields began to slowly come closer, and before I knew, he was running towards the house. I immediately dropped the can and began racing to my room upstairs. I could hear heavy footsteps behind me, but continued running, and right before closing the door, I got a good look at the creature I had summoned. I shut the door, and the house was filled with a piercing screech, followed by claw sounds and bangs on the door. The clawing and screeching continued, and I simply cried, gripping the crucifix and praying for the sun to come up. This went on for hours, but eventually, all I heard was silence. I stayed in my childhood bedroom till 3 p.m. that day. The sun had been up for a while, but my fear didn't let me leave as the image of the man in the fields played over in my memory. In the month that followed, I had my parents admit me into a mental clinic as I kept seeing shadowy figures everywhere and was constantly waking up from nightmares. My court date came and passed, and my absence resulted in my wife claiming the apartment I was living in and most of what little I had left, but I didn't care much. It's been 2 years now, and no amount of time has been able to help me forget that night. I never see my family anymore, and I barely get by with the job I have as a janitor. Things seem to be getting worse, but no matter how bad they get, I would warn everyone, never to summon a man in the fields.
That was a good story.
When I was a teenager,
This is just GTA. This is GTA. Well, guys, see you next time. Make sure you to subscribe. like and subscribe to this guy. The good. And I'm gonna like and give this guy a subscribe. The animation was bad, but it was good. Alright guys, see you next time.